Before you hit record, how do you know if your idea is actually worth listening to? Most podcasters skip this step, and this is exactly why so many shows flop. But don't worry, today I am breaking down how to validate your idea and plan for your success so that you don't create a show that no one wants to listen to. Let's dive in. Welcome back to As It Relates to Podcasting. My name is Simona Costantini, and I am the host of the show and also the creator and founder of Volt Productions, which is a full-service, top-tier podcast production agency, and also the sponsor of today's episode. So if you have been in the planning phase, the starting phase, launch phase, growth phase, or monetization phase of your show, please feel free to book a discovery call using the link in the episode notes below. I would love to hop on a call with you, talk about your ideas, and see how we could make them grow even more. Now, as we get into today's topic, I thought about creating this episode because I thought it was really important. A lot of the times creators miss this huge critical piece, which is validating your show and making sure that it's actually something people want to listen to. So I'm going to break down 3 key points and hopefully you can follow along. Let me know if you have any questions throughout this content or throughout this episode. I'm more than happy to answer all of them. Feel free to book a discovery call. Again, the link to that is in the episode notes below. And with that, let's get into it. So let's talk about validating your podcast idea before you even start. Why is this so important? Validating your show is something that's so critical, or at least validating the idea of your show is something that's so critical. And a lot of creators miss this step. Why it is so important is it's because it's going to tell you and give you a hint and a clue into what it is that your audience actually wants to hear from you. And if the idea you have for your show is something worth creating. Now, I always believe that every single creator has a purpose and everyone has a purpose with their voice and a mission to share the content that they're meant to share. But not every single idea would make for an amazing podcast. So that's why this validation stage is so important. Validation helps you not waste your time and your energy on things that will not move the needle forward. And there's a couple of different ways that we can do that. The first thing you want to do is you want to identify your ideal listener, your target audience. Who are they? What do they enjoy? What do they like? What problems do they have? And how do you solve them? And how does your show solve them? Even if it's a true crime show, even if it's a comedy show, even if it's an entertainment podcast, each show ultimately at the end of the day has to solve some kind of problem that somebody has. Otherwise, people wouldn't tune in. Even if it's to solve the problem of escaping your day-to-day reality or wanting to add in more humor into your day. A show that is worth listening to is something that is going to solve the problem that people have. The next thing you can do is to research different trends. So you can use tools like Keywords Planner, Google Analytics, and also YouTube and just your regular Google search function just to see what people are searching. What are they looking for? What kind of questions do people have? And how are you providing the solutions to those questions? Another way that you can validate your idea is by engaging with your potential listeners. So this would be your email list, your social media community, maybe some Reddit groups or subreddit groups, Facebook groups even, and also your LinkedIn community. The more you can get other people's buy-in right from the beginning and take them along the journey, the better it's going to be for you when you actually go to launch your show because people are going to be excited and they're going to be anticipating the actual launch. So this is a really great way to do 2 things, to prep people for your launch, but also to get some validation from the people that are going to be listening on what resonates the most with them. And I'll give you an example. So a podcast that we just launched is for Northflow, which is a company that I'm a co-founder of. And the show is called Behind the Workflow. As we were getting ready to launch this podcast, I took the cover art and I put it on all different platforms. And what we did as a team was gathered feedback. We wanted to see what did people love? What did people not like? What resonated with people the most and why? And we actually changed which cover art we were going to use because we got such an intense influx of feedback on one specific cover art that people loved that it became a no-brainer and we just had to use that one. Sometimes we think we know what people want, but we never really know what people actually want until we ask them. So making sure that you're tapping into your community and tapping into all of your resources to validate your podcast idea is going to be essential for you in your launching and also in the growth of your show. The last thing that I will say here is also to take a look at your competitors. What are other people doing that are in your niche market? What does their cover art look like? What do their descriptions look like? What episodes are they creating? Taking a look at your competitors is really important, and it's going to give you a look into what other people are creating. Not necessarily that you have to create the exact same thing, but if you're trying to sort of judge and see and make your content based off of what people are listening to, that's going to be a really, really key piece. Now, a big mistake that I see creators make all the time is relying on passion alone. Passion is amazing. You need to be passionate about what you're talking about, but passion alone is not going to be the thing that's going to get you to continuously show up time and time and time again. It's important to have passion, but it's also important to have demand. So when you pair your passion with market demand, that's where you start to see success for your show. You want to make sure that your ideas are going to resonate with your listener before you hit record, because if it's not content that they need to consume, even though it's really, really, really great, it may not give you the results that you want. Number 2 is planning your podcast content for long-term success. So let's start out with the basics. The very first thing you want to consider is the format. What is the format of your show going to be? Are you going to create a solo podcast? Is it going to be co-hosted? Are you going to have guests on? Are you bringing on seasonal guests and seasonal co-hosts? What does that look like? That is really important to understand the format first and foremost. The next thing is, what is your episode length going to be? I get questions about this all the time. Creators ask me, entrepreneurs ask me, small business owners ask me, Simona, how long should my podcast episodes be? And my answer is always, you need to say what you need to say in the perfect time it takes you to say it, okay? So that can be a 10 to 20 minute overview. It can also be a 30 to 40 minute deep dive. It really depends on the content, the structure of the content, the type of episode that you're creating, and what you're trying to get out of the conversation. So you need to kind of figure out what the format is going to be first before you take any next steps. The next thing is your content strategy. What are your first 10 episodes going to be? I always get my podcast launch clients to start here first. And the reason why it's so important is that you need to understand what is the content that you're going to be creating right off the bat. Planning those first 10 episodes is very, very helpful to sort of see how your next few months are going to go, and just to see if you have any content overlaps or if you have any content that is similar. And it also allows you to plan and move things around. So you can take, your first 5 episodes, and then you can plan something different for episodes 6 and 7. You can also create a more consistency. So you could have a guest episode one week, a solo the next, a guest the next week, a solo the next. So outlining your first 10 episodes is really helpful when it just comes to your overall planning, because you just know what to expect and you know what's coming down the line. So how do you actually make a podcast stand out? Well, the first thing that you want to do is create a show that has a very clear and concise and actionable name. People need to understand what they're clicking on, what they're getting themselves into. And the name of your show should indicate, in some respect, what type of podcast they're going to be listening to and what they're going to get out of the show. You next want to pick a very strong UVP, unique value proposition. Why should people listen to you? There is so much content out there. Why should people listen to yours? Is it a specific perspective that you have? Is it expertise that you have? Is it the ability to help them connect on an emotional level? Is it the ability to help them break through any limiting beliefs they may have? Is it your ability to help them find more energy or get healthier? What is your UVP, and how can you weave that into your show? Another thing that you can do to set the stage for your show is creating a trailer. So a trailer is a really important piece of content in the overall podcast production world, in my opinion, because you can use this trailer on your YouTube channel. You can also use it on your hosting platform, and you can use it to run paid ads to it down the line. And what's really great about your trailer is it's supposed to give people a look into what they can expect from your show. Who is it talking to? What do you sound like? What is your equipment like? And all of those different pieces. How's the content? How's the sound? Those things are really, really, really important. And they're going to make people either click and stay or totally not listen at all. So thinking about how do you get your show in front of more people, a trailer could be a really powerful way to do that. I want you to avoid this one common pitfall though, and it is not planning ahead. A lot of the times, creators and podcasters will go and record a whole bunch of episodes, get really excited right off the bat, and then they have no content plan, no content structure, and they don't know what they're recording next. This is really stressful because weeks come very, very fast. And if you don't know what you're creating or what you're going to be recording, it can make for a very stressful situation. And I've seen creators and podcasters pod fade because of this, which means stopping their show. A lot of people don't really get past that third to sixth episode. So whatever you can do to get yourself past that point and into the momentum and into the flow is really, really important. So that is my biggest tip there. Avoid this and help yourself by creating content and planning your content in advance. The last piece we're going to talk about today is launching strong from day one. I think that this is such an important piece to your whole show. You spend so much time creating the podcast, so much time putting your energy behind it, recording interviews, getting your graphics done just right. Your launch should have the same amount of energy, if not more, put into it. So if you're looking for ways or some of the best ways to launch successfully, you want to create a social media content plan. You want to create a pre-launch plan. This is things like behind the scenes, bringing people along with you on your journey, polls, Q&As, stories, questions, anything that can get people engaged. So kind of like I was saying at the beginning of this episode, with Northflow, we shared the cover art for the show, and that was really helpful because it got people excited for the podcast. And when it launched, people were really excited to tune in because they had seen it before, they were a little bit familiar with it, and they felt like they had some buy-in and that they weighed in on a very important decision, which they did. When you go to launch your show, you want to have at least 3 to 5 episodes ready to go. Now, in my agency, we like to launch with 3 episodes. I've also seen a lot of people launch with 5 if they want to. And the reason and the purpose to this is that it hooks people in right off the bat. And what happens is when people get onto your podcast feed, onto your podcast app, or wherever they're listening, they have selection. Not every single episode, not every single title, not every single piece of content is going to be exciting for someone to listen to, right? Not everyone is going to enjoy the same things. So if you can have differing content and like different content for people to listen to, you're likely to have a higher retention and you're more likely to attract them as followers of your show overall, instead of launching one episode here and hoping for the best and just being so excited that your show is out there. So again, you don't need to launch with 3 to 5 episodes, but I would recommend it, especially if your goal is to get a big subscriber count, to hit the charts, and to grow your show quickly. But so now you've launched your podcast, and what do you do to continue to grow it? There's a few things that I have in mind. I'm going to share them with you. You want to engage with your listeners. So whether that's on social media or through your emails, through your DMs, wherever it is that you're posting stuff, you want to reply back and you want to talk to your listeners, especially if they're reaching out to you. So important, and it's something that is overlooked so easily. The next thing you can do is batch record your episodes so that you're not hitting that burnout phase and that you're able to stay consistent and show up every single week. And I also want you to think about monetization early. You don't need to think about this right off the bat, but it is definitely something that comes into play later on because people get the momentum, they get so excited, and now they want to make money from their show. So think about your monetization strategy from the beginning, even if it's something as simple as affiliate links, okay? Super, super, super important. Instead of just starting a podcast, I want you to think about building a show that lasts. Treat it like a long-term project and not like a very quick experiment. And if you want to see how powerful a show can be for your overall business and your brand, sticking to it is the best way that you will be able to see that. Now, let's recap really quick before we round out our episode today. The first thing you want to do is validate your idea before recording. The next thing is planning a format that is sustainable for you. And then launch with a strategy that keeps your momentum going and your show growing. If you want to talk about any of these ideas, please book a discovery call with me. The link is in the episode notes below. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next week, same time, same place. Bye for now.